Our tourism radio station on 96.9 FM is targeting the heavy tourism car traffic on Highway 400, Highway 27, Highway 89, and Yonge Street as it passes through our region.
You could be the first retailer or tourism operator in your area to tap the potential of talking billboards. Own your own radio station and never pay for advertising that doesn't bring business in your door again. Attract the car traffic passing right by your business location into your parking lot with professionally recorded expert radio DJ and spokesperson announcements. Tourists, commuters, and business people will drive in to shop and spend in your business establishment, tourist attraction, restaurant, or hotel. All the new customers your business will ever need are already in the vicinity because they are driving past your business. Attract those new customers with a talking sign. It's a great business opportunity too. Inquiries from resellers and distributors welcome. Call us. It's easy to program your personal FM transmitters with the frequency selection switches on the back of the transmitter. Your own radio station couldn't be easier to operate. Real estate agents and private house sales have been using FM transmitters for years. Churches, sports arenas, health clubs, and theaters and auditoriums currently use our quality engineered transmitters indoors for hearing assistance too. Now these same businesses are using our transmitters to enhance their existing outdoor signage with FM radio announcements. Our transmitters are legal, Part 15 compliant, for license-free operation by both the FCC in the United States and by Industry Canada. Radio promotion really works. You're proving it right now by listening to me now from your car radio. Call to order your own transmitter using our toll-free number and visit our website.
Our tourism radio station on 96.9 FM is targeting the heavy tourism car traffic on Highway 400, Highway 27, Highway 89, and Yonge Street as it passes through our region.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm sure you've done this before. Okay, so
you're the first guy that's never interviewed me. I'm very excited.
I'm the first guy that's interviewed you? No, come on, a union guy. Anyways, okay. So today we have the pleasure of interviewing Wayne Gates of the NDP Provincial Party. He's standing in for NDP leader today. We welcome Wayne to our radio station by a telephone interview. Today's date is Monday, March the 12th. It's the Monday after there is a new leader of the PC Party of Ontario, and we're discussing tourism and other factors in the tourism industry. Welcome, Wayne. Welcome to our radio station, CKEY 98.5 FM here in Barrie.
Well, thanks, Douglas. And I'm the MPP for Niagara Falls, where obviously Niagara on the Lake and Fort Erie. So obviously tourism's extremely important for us down in this part of the province, particularly around jobs. So I'm glad you've called me. The other thing I want to get off the record, right off the hop, seeing this is going to your residents of Barrie, your Barrie Colts have had a great season this year. I've watched them play. They got a really nice team, and I'm looking forward to the finals when it'll be the Barrie Colts against the Niagara Ice Dogs, and it should be a really good series. So I wanted to get that out. I'll probably come up to Barrie. I went to Barrie last year when the Dogs played Barrie and watched the game as well. So I'm a big junior hockey fan. I know the Colts are really good this year. Okay, that's great. I'm sure our local listeners will enjoy that. Yeah, hockey is a big thing for tourism, and yes, and we're very pleased here at the station to be able to interview you. Obviously, coming from the Niagara area, the jewel of tourism industry in Canada. It doesn't get more tourism than Niagara Falls, does it? Well, no. It's not just Niagara Falls either. I mean, everybody, anywhere you go in the world, they'll know about Niagara Falls. Doesn't matter what country or where you're from, anywhere in the world. But in Niagara, a lot Barrie's got obviously some good things going on in Barrie as well. But in Niagara, we have the wine industry that people really love coming down to, the craft brewers, and incredible history in the makeup of Canada as a country. With the War of 1812 and what happens around Queenston and St. David's with our First Nations and the U.S. and Canada. So there's a really big reason why to come down to Niagara. And the falls is obviously the draw, but there's a lot of other reasons to come to Niagara and stay and bring your family and enjoy yourself.
Yes, and actually that's part of our radio station's mandate, Wayne. CKEY 98.5 here in Barrie is one of two radio stations that I operate. It's got a CRTC mandate for tourism information. So we play the Ontario Tourism ski reports, which is the daily ski reports and trail reports, which is very important, obviously, for this area of Ontario, and the weekend reports, and that emulates out of those audios emulate out of the tourism office in Barrie, Ontario. Very interested. So we are actually, as a company, interested in putting other radio stations in other locations, and that actually leads me into my first question with you. It's regarding the OnRoute service centers across Ontario, particularly on 401 and 400 series highways. Just to give the audience a little bit of background before I put the question to you, Wayne, is really several years ago, these gas station service centers were in deterioration, and the Ontario government of the day, which was Liberal, assigned it to a contract to refurb and demolish and then refurb in eco-friendly service centers, and that was awarded to OnRoute Gas Centers organization, which is owned by Maple Leaf Sports and Lawrence Tannenbaum, who is a major Liberal contributor and supporter. I'd like to get Wayne's background or opinion on that. It was a 50-year contract. Some folks have mentioned, usually these contracts have been, 25 years. The previous tenants of these locations, these dual locations, were signed 25-year contracts. This was a 50-year contract. Some people call it a sweetheart deal. But I'd like to hear the NDP position on that. And where we're coming from is that we would like to obviously be able to put signage and be able to promote tourism within those locations. On to you, Wayne.
Yeah, and I mean, you summed up a little bit of some of the stuff that I had put across, but I mean, the old Ontario owned gas centers, which were along the Highway 400, 401 series, there was 28 of those sites, as you're aware of, but they went from Windsor to the Ontario-Quebec border. And that was a 401, and then the 400 in King City, and included Barrie. And as you talked about, the government at that time was the Liberal government. They issued contracts to upgrade them, make them a lot better, build new eco-friendly gas centers along those routes, which I think most people would think might have been a good idea. The problem that you ended up with is the contracts went to OnRoute, I think they're OnRoute.ca, which was a joint venture with a U.S. highway food service center chain, which you didn't mention in your comments, and also Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. And here's, I think, where the problem really comes into play. You touched a little bit about it. The government signed a 50-year, and you're right, it was called a sweetheart deal with a private group, and the group we just named. The centers, and I think this is where the problem really is highlighted, and I think that's where you're going in your comments as well. The centers had token representative of tourism promotion with a form of, those electric digital look upon, they show the displays, but essentially they're really just serving corporate fast foods now. You go in there, there's, there's Wendy's, there's Tim Hortons,
and all those franchises actually fall under the same master franchise holder. So it is the OnRoute organization. So even though there's Wendy's and Tim Hortons and all that, that all falls into the one corporate pool. They are the master franchise holder of all those. So they're not there's not even competition within the site itself.
Yeah, and I guess the point where I was going on that was, I don't believe, and I you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong on this, I don't believe that they're serving the best interests of the local mom and pop tourist operator or operators that are in those communities that I believe should be located in them. I think that was what it was supposed to be when it started out, and they really got away from that mandate. And so I agree that the OnRoutes, they do not promote tourism nearly enough in this province. I'm not sure how the government addresses that when a private company is that owns it. Their main concern there is to make money and not really serve the best interests of Ontario tourism. I think has been pretty clear over the number of years. So once again, it shows the public interest, in my opinion, and I believe others, has been sacrificed as the local government signs another long-term contract with a private sector, and I think that misses a huge opportunity for the province when it comes to promoting tourism.
Okay. And it's my understanding that it is a 50-year contract, so they're probably into the third year or whatever, so there's 47 more years to go, Wayne, and you and I will be dead and gone by then. So what can the voters and taxpayers of Ontario do at this stage? Our local MPP, who is a Liberal, basically said it's out of their hands because the contract is in private hands now for 50 years. I've seen at the King City operation, they did allow a farmer to have some apple sales in the parking lot, so I guess that's how they're supporting one orchard. But our company has a solution for that, which would be basically let me put radio stations into those OnRoute stations across Ontario, based by private enterprise, and I can tell the tourists and motorists passing by about the other attractions. I'd like to draw on the support of you and Andrea to call for that in the House sometime. And anyways, how do you renegotiate a 47-year-old contract now?
And I really think that isn't just new in the province of Ontario. Some of the problems with the Liberal government have been, one, that they want to privatize everything. So one of the things is how we, on a go-forward basis, we have to stop privatizing everything in the province, whether it's road maintenance, whether that's our hospitals, no matter what it is, for whatever reason. And then the second part is, I don't know anybody, and maybe you can correct me, that would say to somebody, yeah, let's sign a 50-year contract with anybody, or a 12-year contract with road maintenance, or a hospital for 25 or 30 years. With technology the way it is, the way society's changing today, it makes absolutely no sense to sign long-term private contracts. So that's the one thing that I think the residents of the province of Ontario are going to have an opportunity in a few short months to decide whether they want to go down the same, and it's a little political, but I'm trying not to be on your station. But the reality is, go down the same road as what the Conservatives and the Liberals have done for the last 20 years and say, okay, the best thing for us is to privatize it. Let's privatize it. Let's have the corporate people get involved, and they'll do a better job. And what we found, or at least certainly in my opinion, what we found, whether it's our road maintenance, whether it's our hospitals, whether it's OnRoutes, they aren't doing a better job. They're not what's doing in the best interest of municipalities like Barrie, like the farmers that would love to have the opportunity to have their local goods sold at these OnRoutes. I mean, that would be great. People would come in, be able to support the local farmers or local small business right there. There's all kinds of things that should have been done with this. And I guess the big thing is people have to understand that vote against any kind of privatization. I heard your message. Okay. I can't make policy up on the fly. I heard what you said. I don't mind the idea, and I certainly would not have a problem having local radio stations be part of this so that we can get that message out. Because at the end of the day, it should be about jobs. It should be about tourism, and it should be about supporting local businesses and local workers. Okay,
let's. Another question is casinos, OLG, slots, gaming, the privatization or movement towards different operators of the slots in Ontario and the different locations and First Nations, Casino-Rama. A lot of similarities between your riding in Niagara and here in Simcoe County. Could you speak briefly about, first of all, I guess give the audience a quick synopsis. Where does the money go, as in the profitability of a slot? So when you put in a loonie or a dollar bill into those slots machines, just like the gas tax and other taxes, how much of that ends up into the provincial coffers, the profits? Of course, it has to support the operator and the profitability of the organization running the casino and things like this. But could you speak to those issues with OLG Slots casinos, Wayne?
Well, I can tell you I'm not an expert, and I'm going to be very clear with your readers on that. But what I do know is that the government, and I'm going to use Woodbine as an example because it's one that I've been dealing with my Fort Erie racetrack and with the casino here as we try to fight to protect our jobs at our casinos here in Niagara. But what I do know is they just signed a private agreement with Woodbine where they used to get for operating the casino, and I may be out by a few percentage points here because I don't have any notes in front of me, so I'm trying to get with my memory on this issue. But it used to be that they would get about, the operator would get around 25% of operating the casino. And now, and that money, the rest of the money, the 75%, would go to the Ontario government. That money would then be used for our hospitals, for our schools, for our infrastructure, which was a substantial amount of money in the billions of dollars. With the privatization of some of these casinos, in particular with Woodbine, they are getting a substantially more chunk of that money is going to go to the private operator. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have something that you know is making billions of dollars, why do you sell it off and give it away to somebody else so they can do it? So I think selling some of the casinos off at the end of the day is going to hurt us, particularly if the share of the pot or the share of the pie isn't divided for the benefit of the province of Ontario. And then the benefit obviously would be making sure that that money is going back into supporting our communities in the form of health care and education and infrastructure.
Sure. Well, I kind of prefer it to, generally because let's talk about regional tourism organizations. A couple of years ago, the Ontario government sort of came up with a solution to sort of dispense funds and marketing expertise more on a regional basis. So they came up with 13 regional tourism organizations. Barrie is in regional tourism area number 7, which falls in with Bruce, Grey, and Simcoe counties. And I guess the logic at the time was that operators and people in those local areas would best know to where to spend and market the best features of their own local attractions. What's the NDP's position on regional tourism organizations? Some folks have, I guess, come up with that, you're looking at another 13 levels of bureaucrats. Individually, I guess a bureaucrat locally in your own backyard is easier to deal with than somebody at Queen's Park. But what's your view on that, Wayne?
Well, I think as a party we support it. But I think there's some issues around things. The regional tourist organizations, we believe, are an important tool for promoting tourism in the province. So let's take a look at that. Now, I'm going to talk about a little bit. Our Niagara is currently in RTO 2, but we do have some unique challenges. Obviously, and I think you've already touched on it a bit in your questioning earlier in this interview, obviously we have a higher than average amount of tourism in Niagara. We believe it's somewhere, when you count everything down in Niagara, around 18 to 20 million people from all over the world. Obviously, with the falls, the casino, our wine industry, we're getting close to 20 million tourists a year. So some of those challenges that the Niagara RTO is having is surrounding the operators of our new casino down here. and that's similar to a lot of other communities. And we're looking now, as we speak, the RFP's been out, changing the operator. And we need down here to make sure that a high-quality operator comes in to ensure that we'll be successfully competing against Toronto, and particularly Woodbine, because the big issue down here is the concern that, and there's been a report on this, that we could lose up to somewhere between 800 and 1,200 jobs if the RFP isn't done right, and that's a major issue for us. Obviously, the jobs. The other issues that are coming here under tourism is the transportation. Barrie, I believe Barrie's got, you got the GO in Barrie. You got a lot of that stuff that's really helping. But down here with 18 million, 20 million tourists coming here, we're fighting hard, if you can imagine, to get the GO trains down here. Now they have announced that the GO trains will be coming here, but the problem is that to get to Niagara Falls, they're now looking at 2023, St. Catharines 2021. Grimsby around 2019, and the problem that we have with that, and I've had the opportunity to meet with people on this issue. We have the Canadian Summer Games coming down to Niagara they're coming in 2021, and wouldn't it be nice that people can get here through the GO train? So overall, we have a great, incredible tourist industry here down in Niagara, but it goes beyond just Niagara Falls. And when I say that, that's when we talk about Niagara-on-the-Lake, we talk about Fort Erie, we talk about, even in Niagara, where you look at the other municipalities, what they have to offer. So Niagara is a very, very extremely important part of the province when it comes to tourism. Right.
What about, next question is really want to talk about, I guess, about the ETR 407. Obviously, that was another deal, another government. Actually, it was a conservative government at the time. What's the NDP's position on the ETR? I was looking at my ETR bill the other day, and they were nice to put in a statement with their rate increases. I think the average peak and off-peak and during peak charge is 50 cents a kilometer. So are the taxpayers and motorists of Ontario, did they get the short end of the stick on the ETR deal, Wayne?
Well, I think you answered that yourself with the continued rate increases. Listen, I'm going to say this as clear as I can for your listeners. There's been a few mistakes made in the province of Ontario. The 407 is certainly one of the biggest mistakes that any government has ever made. It is not as bad as the selling off of our hydro by the Liberal government. And the reason why I say it's not as bad is I can choose to drive on the 407. I can't choose to turn on my lights. So I think the two biggest mistakes that were made, one by a conservative government, one by a Liberal, the selling off of hydro and the privatizing of hydro will go down in history as one of the biggest mistakes ever made by a government. The Mike Harris government, who sold off the 407 to balance a budget, was such a major, major mistake. And Ontarians really can't even afford to drive on it. It's allowed a private company. Again, here we go when I talk about P3s, private companies. It was a major mistake. It's going to hurt our province. Think about it. Here's another. You're talking about that 50-year lease. This is a 99-year lease.
99 years.
99-year lease.
What about the
Who
extension?
in their right mind would do that? And that was done by Mike Harris. And as you know, it was opposed by almost everybody in the province of Ontario. That was, and they sold it off for a long-term or a short-term gain, which was saying they balanced the budget. There was arguments even after they changed government to the Liberals on whether the budget was even balanced. But at the end of the day, Ontarians cannot afford to be driving down the 407. It's a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake for the residents and the province of Ontario to sell off that 401, without a doubt. Okay. And to sign a 99-year lease to a Spanish company, it's It almost takes my breath away to think what a mistake the 407 was.
Okay. What
I hope I was clear on how I feel on that one.
Okay, yes, definitely. Another question would be obviously the move to private liquor sales and wine within grocery stores in Ontario. I mean, this goes back a long way. I can remember that being discussed for many, many years. Some background there, actually. Barrie had an old brewery, Molson plant here, and for years, when my wife and we first bought our house here in Barrie in 1989, some of the tourism attractions for our friends and family coming to Barrie was there was actually a drive-through pickup for beer at that location. Obviously, it was the beer factory site. What's your opinion on the loosening and placing of beer and liquors, beer and wine sales in grocery stores?
Well, we've always supported the LCBO, so I think that's been pretty clear for a long time. I believe we have some challenges on making sure that our products, and down in my area, the big issue with the LCBO, quite frankly, is getting shelf space for our craft breweries, for our wine industry. That's probably our biggest discussion with the LCBO currently that I'm having. Again, I can't talk for the entire party. That's not my job. But with the LCBO, we support the LCBO, but we certainly believe that the wine industry, craft brewers, should have more of an opportunity to get shelf space on the LCBO. If you take a look at a bottle of wine that's made in Ontario, and I'll say Ontario, it's probably doing economic helping the economy to a tune of about $22. If you get one that's coming from say France or something, the economic benefit's about $1.12. So it would make sense to me that we'd open the LCBO to more shelf space for local wineries, local craft brewers.
Okay. Just getting back into another issue, minimum wage, the wage increase in Ontario, obviously in the tourism industry with traditionally wait staff has always had a lower wage, hourly rate because of the tipping in the restaurant hospitality industry. What's your party's position on the minimum wage and that particularly related to the tourism industry, if you can?
Well, I've talked to a lot of tourist operators down here, and, I've talked to them, and some say that, they understand that by raising the minimum wage, that's going to give more people the opportunity to spend in their hotels and in the restaurants. But I'm going to ask you a question, because this is what the minimum wage is really about. And I apologize, but I've got a meeting for 3:30. But here's the thing on the minimum wage. For 8 years, under a PC government, the minimum wage was $6.85. And as those 8 years went on, year after year after year, the inflation was approximately 2% to 2.1. So that meant that the buying power, the cost of living went up 17% as the minimum wage was frozen for 8 years. And when I say to people today, if we just would have done something in those 8 years, we might not be into the jump we are today. But here's the big issue for me. You don't know me from Adam. I'm married. I have 3 beautiful daughters. I have 5 grandkids. And I'm going to ask any of your listeners this. If I'm working full time, 40 hours a week, trying to provide for my family on the minimum wage before the hike, and the first stop I go to is a food bank to feed my family, there's something wrong with the pie, how the pie is being divided. And so that's what I talk about when it comes to a minimum wage. People, when they work full-time, should at least be able to take care of their family, maybe pay their rent. You're probably not having a mortgage payment in today's society, even tough paying rent today, even with a $14 minimum wage. But what was happening in talking to community cares, project shares, they were telling me that people were working full-time and on Friday they were coming to theirs to get their $25 food voucher for food. And the other part of that, I'll just leave it at that. That's how I feel about it, and our party supports it.
Okay, Wayne, thank you very much. I couldn't let you go without a question about the Patrick Brown situation in Barrie. Obviously we've heard what Andrea said the morning after, and obviously there'll be some commentary during the election campaign. Just your thoughts on the whole Brown situation and accountability, I guess, in a party.
Well, what I will say is Andrea called for him to step aside. At that time, it was the right thing to do. I believe, and I just told you, I have 3 daughters and 5 granddaughters. We need to respect women who come forward in these situations, and I think Patrick should focus on his issues and get them corrected, whatever they are.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I look forward to speaking with you and Andrea in the future. I really appreciate you visiting our radio station, CKEY 98.5 FM in Barrie, Ontario, one of the tourist jewels areas of Ontario, also in addition to Niagara Falls. So thank you very much, Wayne. I really appreciate the opportunity of speaking with you today.
And like I said, I'm looking forward to watch our Barrie Colts and Niagara Ice Dogs in the Eastern Final this year, and I'll be coming up to Barrie to visit you to watch some games. So.
Okay, and
Thanks very much.
If your team loses, you owe me a beer.
That's okay. You owe me a Diet Coke. I don't drink.
Okay. All right. Take care, Wayne. Thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.